Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show. Oh, Andy, it's going to be one of those nights, my friend. Can you feel it? It's in the air.
Yes, it is. I thought that was rain in the air.
No, you have some rain, right? That's rare.
It's, yeah, I know.
A couple of years worth in the last couple of hours.
It seems that way, yes.
What do they call those? Do they have some fancy name for those?
Just a lot of rain.
That's not the word I was hoping for.
A deluge is really what it felt like.
Well, you get the dust and the wind, and that's the haboob. right? And so
Right.
I expected something more with more gravitas.
Is Deluge, does that work, or is that not?
Deluge is played, man.
That's all. It's been done.
So old.
Yeah.
Even Monsoon has really run its course.
It's tired.
It's
just, it's just, I mean, really, you need a new word.
We need a new word. Hey, can I tell you something that, speaking of words, this is unrelated to movies, but related to linguistic rage.
Oh, exciting.
Did you hear about this? That all the dictionary, the conspiracy of linguists, they've added the second definition of literally.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yes. And it means like really, really figuratively.
They just gave up on that one, huh?
Yeah, they did. They just gave up. I don't know a whole lot of detail, but I did watch a video from one of the associate editors at Merriam-Webster, and she made a very fine case for it. And of course, I know the background. I know why words become words in dictionaries. I totally understand that. And yet this one, for some reason, still rubs me the wrong way. Doesn't it a little bit to you?
It does, but yeah.
You know, that somehow it is now justified to say my head literally exploded, as if exploding heads was not figurative enough.
Idiots. We're run by a world of idiots.
I appreciate your words, but I'm not feeling that as much that you're on my team tonight. I recognize I may be tilting at windmills, but I'm fine with that. I can deal with that.
I will say, as a fan of proper grammar, it does irk me.
It hurts a little bit.
Yes, a wee bit.
Telling you, words, so dumb. What else have you been doing this week? You know that zero theorem? We talked a lot about that. Fellow is not doing very well.
No.
Terry Gilliam's latest zero theorem with Christoph Waltz. It's not doing well.
It's not getting much of a release. It's very limited.
Is that your theory, that it's that it's bad because it's not getting a release?
It's my theorem.
I think it's worth zero. A case where the converse is not true.
It's like we said with Terry Gilliam. I mean, I'm always curious to see his films. It doesn't mean that his films are always great films or even good films, but at least he's doing something new and different. That's really the reason that I am interested in seeing the film, is because I'm sure it's going to be quite different, even though I have heard some bad things about it.
Yes. Yeah, I think you're on the case on that one. It came out on iTunes. I did not. I had pledged to see it. I have not. I've not put any hustle into that.
Yeah. I don't even know. Did it have a theatrical play at all here in the U.S.?
I have no idea.
Very limited.
I really don't know.
I actually see here that it's still scheduled for release September 19th. So I don't know. Maybe they're going to, maybe they're not. I mean, I guess they'll see how it does out there on the digital world first.
What else you been up to this week? Anything good?
No, I was reading about Leonard Maltin and his latest book. Did you see that?
I did. What do you think?
I think it speaks to kind of what we were just talking about. It's an interesting change in the industry when somebody who's been publishing, I think he's been publishing his book. He started publishing books about like his movie reviews in the late 60s, but I think it was in the early 80s when he started coming out every year with Leonard Maltin's Movie Guide. And it just like every year he was, like clockwork, that thing would come out and it would have reviews of just everything. And they're always fun, very short, quippy reviews. I mean, they are kind of the foundation of what's that guy's game show that you love so much?
Yeah, Doug Benson.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Doug loves movies.
Doug loves movies, which is such what is he going to do? And I wonder what he's going to do on this week's show.
Right.
Clearly, he has a lot of ammunition in the can. But the whole point of this is this is the 36th edition. 36 years he's put out this Leonard Maltin's movie guide, and this is the last one.
Yeah. 2015.
Access to reviews online has led to a, quote, alarming decline in readership.
Yeah.
But, we talk about this as if he's not going to be... I mean, he still runs a robust review circuit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he it's not like he's going to stop working or anything, but it's just interesting that kind of the hard copy book that he would put out every year of his reviews, that was just always fun to look at and a great way to get a quick glimpse at, movies that you were curious about watching. That's going to end.
Yeah.
And, it's a little sad, but it just speaks to kind of this constant change in the world in which we live. And now there's just a glut of people reviewing films or doing podcasts about movies or whatever it may be, that people don't need, that source anymore, when it's so easy to go to the internet and just search something and go, oh, okay, that sounds interesting. You can see 50 reviews for a film if you type the name in. You don't need to worry about pulling out that handy book and flipping pages to it. So it's an interesting change, and I feel bad for him, but I guess it's just the way things work. It
is certainly the way things work. He's a property in himself. I mean, clearly he has enough of his. I don't know. I'm not fearing for him. He's over at IndieWire. He has Leonard Maltin's Movie Crazy over there, and he's got he runs some terrific reviews, and it looks like he'll be continually busy.
Well, and if he's smart, he'll get some apps together of movie reviews. I mean, that's a great way to do it. I mean, I still have Roger Ebert's Great Movies app on my phone, so I can kind of flip through there and see what he had as his great movies list.
Have you ever looked for Leonard Maltin on the App Store?
I haven't, actually.
I'm doing that right now.
Me 3.
No, there's nothing for Leonard Maltin. Yeah, if he's smart, he'd get some apps out there, Leonard Maltin.
That's right.
Sort of surprised he didn't lead with that. Keep the book alive until you have the app.
Exactly.
Leonard Maltin. You want to? Should we tell the people where we're from?
Where are we from?
Hey, everybody! It's the Next Reel. I'm Pete Wright. That there's Andy Nelson.
Hey,
and we spoil movies. Grateful that you put your movie spoilage in our hands this evening. We're going to be continuing our epic saga, The Man with No Name trilogies from Sergio Leone, for a few dollars more tonight. But first, you need to learn more about the show. You head over to thenextreel.com, and you can read the blog stylings of the once future king, Steve Sarmento. You can catch up with all of our past shows and all of the special monthly film board episodes, where we do this kind of a thing with the Gang of Thugs for new release films as well. So you should do that. You can join the conversation at facebook.com/thenextreel or twitter.com/thenextreel or on Google Plus or, even Pinterest. You can take a look at our massive library of fantastic classic posters from all of the movies that we talked about and more right there on Instagram or on Pinterest. So you should do that. But most importantly, we have to catch up on the Instagram hashtag Guess the Movie hashtag Pony Prize Challenge. Andy versus the people. How'd you do? I think I don't know. Go ahead.
Oh,
I don't want to spoil it. You think you did okay?
I did all right. I made it 4 images in. That's about halfway.
Yeah, 4's pretty good.
Yeah, not too bad.
Number 5 would have crushed it for you. I think that was placement. Yes, it was. It was a $1 Million Baby, kind of tying into the series a little bit, with a little Clint Eastwood action going on. I think that there were some good images in there that misled people for a little while, so that's always the aim, I guess. And Amanda 09 ended up getting it on the 4th image, and congratulations to Amanda 09. She's now entered to win the Pony Prize. Amanda 09 amuses me. Would you like to know why?
Tell me why.
Because when you actually look at her profile,
Mm-hmm.
her profile is full of babies. I think it's all the same baby. I think it's her baby, but it's ironic that she would get $1 Million Baby when she runs an Instagram profile of 1 million babies.
Wow. As if it was meant to be.
Adorable babies, for sure. So $1 Million Baby, there were some good images there. I was actually, I'm going to tell you, it's rare that I am on top of it. Like I am. Even some of the more obvious ones, I don't get. Because that's not how my brain works. But this one, I had it.
Really?
Yeah, I did. From early on, it wasn't the second image, and kind of weird. The alarm clock image could have been anywhere, but the third image, I had it.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, I was feeling good about that.
Well, good on ya.
Let's do trailers. I want to go first, Andrew.
Oh, all right.
Gabe Ibanez, writer and director of Automata 2014, due out October 10th, 2014 in South Africa. So for our South African listeners, this is the film for you. Antonio Banderas stars with Birgit Hjortsonsson and Melanie Griffith in this film about robots that become sentient and kidnap somebody.
Mm.
And you know what? This caused me to add a whole genre of sentient robot movies to my guilty pleasure list. So get ready.
I hope that doesn't include IA Robot.
It does include that. Yes, I'm going to say it. It includes. I don't know why.
You are guilty.
I am guilty of finding pleasure in iRobot. Because for some weird reason, this is like my celebration of zombies. This is one of those robot sort of subgenres, sentient robots that take over the world, that I find fascinating. In this case, Antonio Banderas plays an insurance agent that investigates cases of manipulating robots, and they go off of the same sort of, robot shall not harm a human, and et cetera, et cetera. And so the rules of robotics, same thing that they go through in, in iRobot. It's what's his name? Who wrote iRobot? Please.
Asimov?
Right. So it's Asimov's three laws of robotics, right? The robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human to come to harm. A robot must obey the orders given to it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law, and a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. And this is a movie that explores what happens when those laws get twisted up. And it really explores the fallacy of the three laws and why the laws have often been sort of have come under disrepute because they can be so easily tested. This movie explores that, and I find that fascinating. So even this is not a great movie, I'm very interested in seeing it. I love the idea of robots. At that, it's the same reason I absolutely loved the latest incarnation of BSG, Battlestar Galactica. It's that idea that we are witness to the point at which robots reach self-awareness. I am hooked. That's all.
No, I think this looks great. I think it looks really interesting. The cast looks great. It's got Dylan McDermott and Robert Forster in it. And did you see that Javier Bardem plays the voice of the blue robot?
I know. Isn't that great?
It is very cool.
Yeah.
So. It looks really intriguing. And it's nice to see, Antonio Banderas is one of those actors who I think I think he can do some really interesting stuff when he's in the right projects, and I think he has so often not been in the right projects. So I'm excited to see this because I think that it looks really interesting, and it's nice to see that it looks like a project he's bringing to us. He produced it,
right?
So I don't know much about the director, but this is it has a lot of interesting stuff going for it.
It really does. It's like Mad Max meets iRobot.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything else from the director. It looks like he has a number of visual effects credits, but really is very, very sort of small.
Yeah.
This looks like an interesting one that may cause us to go back and catch some old movies.
Well, I'm all for it.
Old movies. I mean, in the aughts, they're aught movies.
Right.
All right.
Cool.
Let's talk about yours.
Yeah, mine is Young Ones, the new film that looks like actually kind of like a spiritual sequel to Solar Babies. If you remember that from 1986. It is basically kind of a future world. It's almost like a sci-fi western, which intrigues me. It's a future world where water is just really kind of become this rare resource, and people are kind of trying to find it and fight over it, and and protect it when they do find it. It looks really interesting. It's got Michael Shannon, who I think is just one of those great actors when he's in anything. And then Nicholas Hoult, who is always intriguing. He's one of those intriguing actors that kind of pops up in really interesting roles, whether it's a big budget thing or a small indie film. I really enjoy seeing him on the screen. And then Elle Fanning looks great in it, and Cody Smith-McPhee. So it looks like a really interesting film. And just the idea of this world where people are struggling trying to find water, and you've got kind of this psychological battle between people as they whether it's a father trying to protect his daughter from falling for this mysterious young boy who kind of rolls into their area, or whether it's the Google robot dog that's kind of walking around helping carry stuff. I mean, they've created a really cool world here, and I love the cast, I love the look, I love the feel of it, and I'm excited for this one.
I'm sorry, I got really stuck trying to figure out what relationship Jake Paltrow has to Gwyneth. He is the brother.
Yeah, right. He's
of the Gwyneth.
Right.
I don't know. Have I seen anything else from Jake Paltrow? I don't think so.
He's directed some TV stuff, like some episodes of NYPD Blue.
NYPD Blue, right.
But not much. I think he's only had one film to his name, The Good Night, which
I did not see.
I didn't either.
But this one, I get that same feeling looking at this that I do at that new Robert Pattinson film that I have not seen yet, but I'm very, very excited to see, which is The Rover.
Right.
Have you caught The Rover yet?
No, I haven't, but that's definitely on my list. That is another extremely exciting one that. It looks exciting to me.
Yeah, it really looks very exciting. I love I love these. I have a really good feeling about these films that really take where this barren scenery kind of becomes the character. And clearly in this one, likely the major antagonist, non-human antagonist, is the land, constantly fighting the land and what they're able to do, and it's a heavy hand on this film, and I think it looks really good, much better, I think, and we can debate this maybe than Solar Babies.
Yeah, well, I hope so. Although at the time, I tell you, I was quite a fan of Solar Babies. It was my 13-year-old self who saw that.
I'm not going to lie to you. I did too. And there's a line that by now has been completely butchered. Because I've used it so much. I don't remember what the lead into this line was, but they said something about something totally unrelated, and then they said such and such about such and such, and that's taken from what, like bunnies, and from then on for 20 years, I would say that's what related to what, bunnies. That's kind of a thing that I did for a long time, really inappropriately, just tag bunnies to everything, and that was from that movie.
That's funny.
Sort of outed myself there.
You did.
Yeah. Cool?
Here it is. They called themselves eco warriors. Eco being taken from what? Rabbit?
That's totally it. That's not even rabbit, not bunnies. Ah.
And then Rabbit says, "Hey, if they took it, they should give it back."
Where is that? Did you just search for bunnies and find rabbit?
Yeah, I looked on their quotes page.
Oh, on IMDb. That's awesome. Yeah. Wow, I should have gone there. I would have sounded more together. Okay, well, now I get to change myself up again and go with rabbits. From here...
That's right. It'll be the defining line in your life. There was the bunnies part of your life, and there was the rabbit part of your life.
I've matured and become a rabbit. I think we should go get a few dollars more.
You remember him, don't you? He's Clint Eastwood. And him, John Wells. The great actor Gian Maria Volonte. They were the men who excited you so in For a Fistful of Dollars. Here they are, united once more Clint Eastwood and Gian Maria Volonte, under the inspired direction of Sergio Leone, better known as Bob Robertson. And for added good measure, Lee Van Cleef, in a fast-moving film crowded with action. For a few dollars more. It's the story of two bounty killers, men who inspired fear in the worst criminals. What made these men tick?
Well, there's such a big reward being offered on all you gentlemen that I thought I might just tag along on your next robbery. Might just turn you into the law.
Naturally. I'll be in the tavern. The air around here stinks anyway. Just like the food. But the month will go fast.
Yes, these men knew how to wait. Because in a land where life had no value, death might have a price.
I'm letting you leave here. That's so you can tell everybody you've seen what takes place here.
Didn't hear what the bet was.
Your life.
I like this movie better than the last one.
Do you?
So much I want to sing about it.
Wow, that's quite a bit.
Like I'm on Broadway.
I think I do too. I actually really like both of them, but I think I like For a Few Dollars More. I just enjoy the characters in this one. I feel like Leone came into his own a little bit more with this film. And, you know, Fistful of Dollars, in my mind, I always end up having the comparison between that and Yojimbo so much. And I feel like I've seen Fistful a lot more, and maybe it's because of the Yojimbo. Every time I see Yojimbo, I feel like I also just watched Fistful of Dollars, and vice versa, you know. But this film I haven't seen as much, but I don't know why that is, because I really do enjoy this film.
I really do. I was surprised because I like you. I haven't seen this movie. Well, it's been a long time since I've seen this movie for sure. But I found from the moment the opening sequence, it just absolutely slays me. Leading into these just wonderful credits, another fantastic Eugenio Lardani credit sequence that is just wonderful. And from that moment on, I am totally in. I think one of the nice things about this movie is that it's kind of a buddy movie, but nobody is good in this movie. The characters sort of, the depth of their malice is ratcheted up in this film over the last one. We don't have quite so many hints of hidden good guyness that we talked about in the last one. And yet, by the end of the film, when we do the Leone three-way standoff, it is super intense. And I think the way we get this sort of layered emotional baggage is sort of seeded out to us so slowly and so over the course of 2 hours that by the time we get into that triangle, it really has much more weight for me, emotional weight for me, than the first film of the trilogy.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, you get a lot more time as Leone progresses in his films. They get longer and longer, and that gives him time to really develop the characters a little more, to play around with the scenes, like the standoffs that they each have. At the beginning, the story itself doesn't start for at least 20 minutes or so, while we're just meeting our two lead characters,
right? Which
is a nice change to kind of give us an opportunity to get to know both Colonel Mortimer and Manco, played by Lee Van Cleef and Clint Eastwood, respectively, as they kind of are these two bounty hunters, or bounty killers, as they call them in the film, who are basically pursuing some bounty that they're trying to catch or kill so that they can make some money. And it's a great way to introduce both of these characters before we even get the story going. And so you get a lot more of that development, which I really enjoyed. Seeing how Leone kind of developed the story with these characters, gave it more time, and even Colonel Mortimer's character. I mean, you said that there's not as much good, and I don't know if I'd say say that completely. I mean, he definitely is kind of they're both bounty hunters. They're out to make a buck by killing people, basically.
Well, and let's be clear. Yeah, I mean, they're bounty killers for a reason in this film. Like, they don't take anybody.
Right.
They kill everybody they look for. They're killing. Yeah, it's
right.
always dead.
It's always dead or alive, but they go for dead.
Right.
Exactly. But, I mean, there is an interesting story of revenge that he is pursuing in this film. And I do find that interesting, and I enjoy that bit of the film because he's not completely bad. There's an element to him that is, trying to find justice for his sister that Indio, played by Gian Maria Volonte again, killed. He was raping and killing. Or raping and caused to kill herself, I guess. But.
Right. And, I think that's an interest. So let's walk through the film just a bit, because I imagine there are other people who have not seen this film or certainly seen it in a long time. So this film opens and with like you say, this long, really restrained introduction of these two major characters of Clint Eastwood, Lee Van Cleef, and they are both on a bounty. They're looking for and executing this bounty killings for the money. But in the process, we learn that they're looking for, or they discovered that there's a particularly high bounty, a $10,000 bounty on El Indio. This was, as you said, played by Gian Maria Volonte. And that's what begins sort of the search for El Indio. And we don't know up front that there is any connection between Mortimer and Volonte beyond, and Indio beyond the fact that it's a bounty and he's a bounty killer. Yes?
Right, exactly. I mean, there is that really fascinating editing montage when Mortimer first sees the poster advertising, the bounty for Indio, which, always strikes me as just completely out of left field. The montage where it's like, it shows the poster and then it's like you hear the gunshot and it cuts to Mortimer's face, and then bang, bang, bang as it's cutting back and forth between him and the poster.
Yes.
It's a very strange little montage, but you realize why that is as the film comes to a conclusion. And so that's the only hint, really, and I don't even know I'd call it a hint. And then you have those interesting memory flashbacks for Indio as he's kind of remembering this scene where he got this pocket watch. Obviously, it was something that kind of affected him, really. So it ended up affecting both of them, interestingly.
Well, and that's something I wanted to bring up. What's your take on that? Because I think it's really fascinating that the guy who is on the revenge mission, we only get that flashback. He only serves as a vehicle for any sort of flashback, any sort of backstory once. And it's, as you explained, it's that very weird sort of avant-garde brief montage of gunshots and hysterical laughter. And from then on, the guy who serves as the vessel of the flashback is the main criminal, the violator and rapist, that actually serves as the guy who delivers the journey. Like, he's why we're going on this journey. And typically, I think it's the other way around, right? Where it's the guy who's seeking, it's his perspective that delivers the heart of the story.
Right. Yeah, it's a really interesting way to structure the script where something about that crime affected Indio. I mean, we already know we know he's twisted. We know he is content to murder women and children. He's this horrible guy, and he laughs at what he does. I mean, he's just really despicable. But in this flashback, he kind of sneaks into this room where there's a man and a woman, like husband and wife, who are together in their bedroom, and he guns the man down and then rapes the woman, and then takes this pocket watch that is kind of this, chime that has a picture of her in it that plays this tune. And from that moment on, he is plagued by her, really, in his mind. It's as if that tune, he can't get it out of his head. And it's almost like this reminder that, because she escapes him. She's really kind of the only person who escapes him. Because while he's raping her, she grabs his gun, and she doesn't kill him, she kills herself. And so that may be the thing that kind of triggers this thing in him where he was defeated, and it's going to, drive him crazy because that's the one person who got away. And I've, read some people where they say that, there are hints throughout the film that he is impotent from that moment on, and that's something that has been driving him, and that's partly the thing that's driving his madness. I don't know if I got that out of the film, but it is an interesting way to look at that, as if that moment is something that kind of made him crack a little bit. And I mean, you see that through the film. He's definitely a kind of a damaged man. I mean, he's he's smoking pot. His buddy keeps giving him joints to smoke, and every time he does, I mean, it's like kind of that weird music plays, and he just like almost like passes out there, and it's I don't know. I think that he is a man who got stuck in the past when this woman got away from him, and so it is a very interesting idea that he is the one who brings that memory back, and Colonel Mortimer is the one who isn't thinking about the memory, but obviously is the one who works to avenge his sister and brother-in-law.
Right. And that in the end, I mean, that's what I mean. Like, you get this hint. I guess you could read it that there's a hint of good in Mortimer, but I don't give him that much credit, because at the end, even though he has finished his journey, right? He's finished his revenge journey. He's killed his sister's killer, and he gives all of the bounty, all the bodies, the pile of bodies, he gives to Monco, to Clint Eastwood, to draw off to get the bounty. We don't get any sense that has changed his life at all, that has changed his path. He's still a bounty killer after this little hiccup in his adventures.
Right, yeah. And I think that's, generally true in most revenge stories, where the person finally does the killing, but then finds that, it really doesn't bring that person back. It really doesn't change much for them.
Yeah, I don't know that I would say in most revenge thing. It may not change for them, but generally once, you have this journey, once you get there, your job is done.
It's a strange journey for him, because he doesn't, Indio is in prison up until that escape at the beginning of the film.
Right.
And if he really wanted revenge on Indio, I mean, while he was in prison, he could have thrown dynamite into the cell and killed him or something. Right. I mean, there are ways that he could have done that. He didn't seem to care about pursuing Indio until he found out that he escaped. So, I mean, maybe it is just another part of his...
Yeah, maybe it was. Hey, isn't it? Maybe that was and that's the first thing I thought was, because you said, I mean, they establish precedent in the film that tossing dynamite into a cell is a really good way to break somebody out of jail.
Right.
Like that's an easy one. That's sort of low hanging fruit. And yet, you're right, he doesn't. And that's what locked that into the character for me. That In fact, either he didn't know that Indio was alive, or didn't know where he was until he saw that poster, or it was the allure of the $10,000 that finally made it sexy.
Yeah,
that finally aroused him enough to do it.
Yeah, but then it's like that's defeating the point of his need to avenge his sister.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but I think that's questionable, right? I mean, I think it's questionable, and that's part of what makes these characters in this particular sort of entree to spaghetti western so complicated. Is that as sort of goofy and over the top some of the characters can be, when you really look at their motivations, it can be sort of complex. Like why, and the fact that we are not given all of him up front. I think is a testament to that. Like, we don't know. We really don't get to know, why he does what he does.
Well, and like what we said last week, that speaks to what Leone was really trying to achieve with these Westerns. He really loved American Westerns, but he felt they were so black and white, and he really did want to explore that gray area. And that is what he continues here in a grander fashion. We've got some very interesting characters here. I mean, obviously Indio is a very black and white character. He really is just kind of a pure evil sort of character. But Mortimer and Monco both are much more in that gray area. I mean, they live as bounty killers. Their job is to, or really their profession is to go out and kill people for money. And it's, it's kind of a dirty profession, whether they, and they have to even join up with the bad guys for a while to kind of weasel their way into the group. So they really are operating in that gray area that I think is exactly what Leone was wanting to do, and that's why I think it makes these characters so much more interesting to watch than a lot of the other westerns.
I think so too. They play with honor, this sort of honor among thieves, in kind of an interesting way, right? There are a couple of examples. One, we do see these guys come together and they kind of test each other in a really nice shoot off at night. They shoot each other's hats down the street, and you get this sense that they're building, certainly not trust, but at least awareness of one another and their skills, right? They come to terms with the fact that they're both hunting the same guy. They aren't clear about the motivations for doing so, but they do know that together they're more likely to create a sort of between the fire scenario where they can actually take on this gang and catch their bounty.
Yeah.
And so they team up. And this nice second act of this film gets sort of tied in knots around double talk and sort of these little betrayals, and each one catching the other on these little betrayals that are really that I think are really sort of interesting. They, and I think it works towards building trust to this moment where they're both caught and they are beaten. They're beaten silly together. And as they, when we see these two characters who at once didn't trust each other, then become both prey of this giant, gang, you see them actually build an affinity finally, and that's where sort of the movie turns, and we get to see who they are together. But I really like the way they play with this, as we have in one sequence, Eastwood and Van Cleef are talking, and he says, "Are you going to take him north?" "Yeah, I'm going to take him north." And so immediately they split up, and Eastwood talks Indio to go east.
Well, he talks him
into going south, and Indio says, "I think I'll go east." So, but either way, he's not going north. But who thinks through the plan? Mortimer thinks through the plan and says, I thought through it, and I had a feeling you were going to say exactly the opposite, and then he probably wouldn't do it, and so this is where you would end up.
Yeah.
And so we end up, those little tiny nudges, I think, really do well to play with this concept of honor among thieves, of essentially what amounts to a buddy movie. It's a little bit of comedy where you see these two guys catch one another, and finally leads to, I think, a really dramatic beatdown where they finally really come together.
Not just the beatdown where they come together, but then the whole showdown at the end. I mean, I think it continues, and it's such a great way that they develop this relationship. So by the time they get to the end, they're working together, and they're kind of getting this whole thing. Just catching all these bad guys, basically.
Well, and that's the payoff too. When he shows up with that, because this is one of the things. When you, and here's another example of honor in the film. Why is it when Indio stands up and is about to shoot somebody, he plays the music that comes out of this pocket watch, and nobody draws on him? Like, everybody waits patiently until the music goes down, right? All these guys are killers. Like, they have ostensibly no honor whatsoever, and yet everybody waits.
Yeah.
Until he says, when the music stops, now we begin.
Yeah, because it's nonsense. There's no reason anybody needs to do that. And I guess it goes back to the honor among thieves theory,
right,
that you have, that it's like they are going to do it because that's what he said. It doesn't make any sense, but
that's what makes that final sequence work, right? When we're listening to the music and then we hear that second refrain of the second pocket watch that Manco has taken from Mortimer, and he holds it up, and there's that beautiful shot, that perfect Leone shot, right, from the perspective of immediately behind the watch. Right. In Mortimer's hand, filling out that incredibly wide frame.
No, in Manco's hand.
In Manco's hand, right. In Manco's hand, and filling out that frame where we have Mortimer and Indio on opposite sides of the screen. It's just a beautiful shot. We hear the sort of competing clips from these pocket watches, and that's the payoff. Like you say, that's the payoff when we realize that these guys really are working together.
Yeah,
it just works so well.
It's fantastic.
It's the piece that I think that's the sequence that makes this film better than the last, for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the elements of the characters just work so well together, and it's an original story, so it's bound to kind of just, be a little stronger because he wasn't, just doing what somebody else had done well before him.
Right.
So, yeah.
What else sticks out for you?
Just like Leone, I think Ennio Morricone is growing quite a bit with his scoring, and I think the music in this is just. I mean, I think they both have fantastic themes, but I think this one just is that much stronger, and I think that. I mean, he continues kind of that. He's kind of got the electric guitar in his score. He's got the Jewish harp. He's got the whistling, the whip cracks, the gunshots, the choral chanting. Everything is going on all through the score, and it's just such an amazing score. And then what he does, I think, really well, just like he does later, a couple of films with Leone later in Once Upon a Time in the West. He incorporates a musical element within the film into the score, and so that pocket watch actually, it's the chime that it plays actually becomes a part of the score, and so you get this great blend of that music as it's actually something that the characters can hear, but then it's something that's really just the score that only we can hear, and it's going back and forth. And I think that's just all of this with the music that Morricone does here is just so much stronger than Fistful of Dollars, and it'll continue to get stronger in the next film. But I love listening to the progression of his music from there to here to Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and the themes that he has for each of the characters, the little stings that he has, like when Colonel Mortimer comes outside at that the first bounty while that guy's riding away, and he opens up his saddlebag and you see all those rifles in there. Yes. You got that great musical sting right there. I mean, he's great at giving just those 1 or 2 second little hits that Leone needs to kind of emphasize some points, and it's a strong element in the film. And I think Morricone is a versatile musician that clearly knows what Leone needs to make these films.
That's an interesting point. I was listening to The Treatment this week with Elvis Mitchell. It's a fantastic show on KCRW. I know I've talked about it before on the show. And James Gunn was on the show, and they were talking at some length about about this idea of kind of the power of music, working with the music and working with the music, how it defines the actual creation of the film, not just the scoring of the film, but actually defines a creation. And it's one of those things he worked with his composer to develop the music so they could listen to it on set. And one of the things he kept coming back to was the Leone-Morricone partnership. And it makes me think, I haven't been doing enough due diligence, or not due diligence, but due justice to the fact that these guys together, really, it's their work together that redefined how we see the Western, right?
Yeah, right.
Using that sort of the whistle and the floating lyrical strings to pair up with this incredibly sort of rugged vistas. It defines our emotional response to these terrific shots.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And like James Gunn was saying, I mean, Morricone would compose the music for these before the shooting started, right. and Leone would actually play the music on set to kind of give people the sense of it. And I think that's something that works really well with both the music and Leone's direction, is the understanding that Leone is not making these films where he's just capturing reaction shots of people looking at each other. He's really, like, the shots of people looking at each other are really just a part of the pacing of the film and are part of the landscape, really, that you're kind of seeing, and the music ties into that perfectly, like, especially like in the showdowns and the writing and all of that sort of stuff. It really works to emphasize those moments and to show us that we're not just cutting to Lee Van Cleef to get a reaction shot as he waits to see what Manco is going to do, or what when the music is going to end, when he's in his duel with Indio. It's not these reaction shots. You're actually getting these shots where he holds on them and they look at each other, and it's these fantastic shots. And Morricone's score works in tandem throughout the film perfectly.
It really does. It leads, it moves back and forth between trailing the editing of the film and leading the editing of the film, particularly in these showdowns. You get the sense that it's these wonderful little whistle stings that actually lead each cut eye to eye, and each twitch of the eye as they look from one to the other, I think are really defined by the music that's going on. I think that works just so well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. What else stands out to you? We've talked. We want to talk about folks beyond. How did Gian Maria Volonte come back from the dead? I think is an interesting question. It's interesting the way this film works because Volonte was in Fistful of Dollars.
Right.
He died.
Right.
At the end of that movie. And so, I don't know, is it even worth asking the question, the sort of leading question about the universe?
It's not really a universe, and that's the thing that why the trilogy name, The Man with No Name, doesn't really make that much sense because he's a different character in every single film. He goes from Joe to Monco here to Blondie in the next one, right. Even though the persona is essentially the exact same persona
and the clothes,
right? And that's what makes him the same. And Universe are not United Artists when they released this really pushed that. The Man with No Name is back. I mean, they were really pushing that as their marketing tool, that this is the same character, even though he's clearly not the same character, at least by name. It's almost like the same character plucked up and dropped into a different story and given a different name, kind of like almost like a Stephen King universe sort of thing, you know?
And that's what I was thinking. I mean, it gets to this sort of American Horror Story-esque kind of a right. twist where, each season it's the same actors playing completely different characters, but in this one it's made awkward, and maybe only in the eyes of history when we're trying to watch these all three together, and we're tested because, contextually we're in an era where we're universe heavy. Whether it's James Bond or Marvel or Star Trek, whatever, we're talking all about these sort of universes. Harry Potter, I mean, name it. In this case, all the characters are different except for this, The Man with No Name. And I think The Man with No Name sort of Hill story still holds true because, when I think about him, I think, we talked about this, all the names had been given to him. He is known as, he never introduces himself as Monco, just as he never introduced himself as Joe. And right. I actually hear him, he doesn't introduce himself as Blondie, I don't believe, and Good and Bad and the Ugly. I think they stay true to that. So he really could be the same guy, and it ends up being, more of a well, I don't know. I was about to compare it to say he's more of a James Bond, but I'm not sure I would even buy that.
Yeah, right.
But that's what makes it awkward, I think, looking at these back to back and trying to call it a trilogy. It's a spiritual trilogy, and it just happens to be, Leone stretching the genre maybe.
Yeah, and just playing with the characters that he loves. I mean, I think that's it.
Playing with the icons that he loves, the archetypes.
And that he created, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he loved this persona of Clint Eastwood that he created in the first film, that he wanted to keep playing with that same character.
And same thing with the, the bearded black hat. I mean, you can tell he really loves this character that Volonte plays, this archetypical bad guy, crazy, pot-smoking rapist.
Yeah. Volonte is a very big actor, and Leone had a very hard time trying to get Volonte to act smaller, and it was very, very frustrating for Leone, and he kept having him redo it, and Volonte was just fed up, and I think that's why he didn't end up appearing in any more of Leone's films, because he was just done with Leone trying to, as he thought, make his performance too small. But clearly, he is an actor who acts very big. I think maybe it shows that he is a theater actor because his performance is so over the top.
But, I really, really liked his performance. And I can totally see that in this film more. He is smaller in this film, I think, than the last. And I think that really serves his mania, right? I mean, it really serves the craziness that we get in him, that sort of more subdued, that sort of eyes are always sort of half down, his eyelids are sort of half drawn kind of. And I think that really serves, who he is in the film.
Well, and, the only other cast member that I had written down that I wanted to talk about was Klaus Kinski.
Klaus Kinski.
Who strangely pops up in here as the hunchback.
So funny.
Juan, which, it's a strange little thing to kind of have him pop up here. And he's such an interesting actor to watch. Obviously, he's done a lot of stuff with Werner Herzog. But I think it was this film that he was in that, as I think I read, that this is the film that when David Lean saw his performance in this film, that's what convinced him to cast him in Dr. Zhivago. Mm-hmm. We didn't talk about Lee Van Cleef too much, and I think he's worth talking about because he is such an interesting presence that hadn't, he wasn't in the last film, and he's a very critical character here. And he's an actor who had been seen in a lot of Westerns, but he was never the lead. He was always kind of a small character who would get gunned down at some point. And this was really an incredible opportunity for him to basically be given kind of one of the lead characters in a film. And it was just one of those things where Leone had remembered him, and while he was trying to find the right actor to play this part, and he had a few other names that he was looking at, but he couldn't afford them or whatever. And then he remembered Lee Van Cleef from one of the westerns that he had been in, and he went out to Hollywood and found him. And Lee Van Cleef had been in a car accident a few years before, and hadn't been acting a whole lot, I guess. I mean, he had still had a few things going on, but not a lot of stuff. And he really hurt his legs in this car accident. And and was having a hard time. And I guess he was near broke and everything. And Leone offered him this part, and he jumped at the chance, and he went out and shot it. And he defines just as much as Clint Eastwood does what kind of that prototypical Western character is. And I think he, the squint in his eye and just the profile that he has and the way he holds a gun and everything about him, I think, just reeks of Western. And it was really this film and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly that ended up putting him back on the map. And this is kind of what led us to talking about him in Escape from New York.
I was hoping you would bring that up. It's interesting. He brings a sort of restrained gravitas to this film, right? I mean, he plays the role of obviously his military background is part of the story. That we get this sense of his polish. Right. Clearly, he has he is a man of letters and of learning and of training. We also get a sense that his talent is unsurpassed, even by our hero, ultimately Clint Eastwood. This is Van Cleef's story of revenge, and he is the character that owns everything. But he's also sort of the teacher, for Eastwood. The teacher who reminds him, I'm going to throw you a bone every now and again, but don't ever forget who's driving. And that's one of the reasons I like their relationship so much, particularly after the showdown at the end. There's this little moment after, what's his name? Not Guppy, Gimpy. What's that character's name he shoots at the end? Groggy. There's a sequence at the end after he's piling bodies and Van Cleef's character is ridden off, 100 yards or so, and he hears a gunshot, and it's Eastwood, and he turns around and and checks in on Monko's progress. Is everything okay? We get this sense that he's still, even after he's kind of given up his revenge, he's moving on with his life now in this part of his adventure. He's given up all the bounty. He's still sort of taking that teacher ownership or that paternal ownership of the relationship between him and the younger Eastwood.
Yeah, it does kind of have that father-son. I mean, the old man and boy, they call each other quite a bit.
Right.
So there definitely is that sense to it. So yeah, it is an interesting, and he does play that well. Leone continues kind of playing with religion, like he did a little bit in the last film. In this film, he's mocking a little bit more, along with kind of morality. And I think it's very interesting. I love the scene when Indio is talking about his plan to steal this safe, and they're in like an abandoned church, and he's up on the pulpit as if he's the preacher preaching to his people. And then the interesting thing is he was in prison with this man who had given him the plans, or told him about this secret safe in this bank that they're going to go rob. And this man happened to be a carpenter. And so it's just very funny that here is Indio on the pulpit preaching to his people about, they're going to go rob this bank and everything, and that he had gotten the word from the carpenter, which is very, a Jesus-like thing. And so I find that very interesting that he continues to play with that, and the idea of I'm not really sure if he's saying that much about religion and everything, but I do feel that he's kind of mocking it a little bit by putting this scene there and playing with these characters in this way, where these bad guys kind of hold up in this old church. It's an interesting element that I really, again, going back to what we said last week, another additional element that he throws in that helps build the film in a way that makes it a film that is exciting to watch and exciting to explore and talk about. It's a smart film.
It is a smart film. Isn't it interesting on that point that he has his flock, his followers, his gang. He speaks to them from the pulpit, and it ends in essentially a betrayal. Right? Yeah. He betrays his flock for the money. By trying to get them killed and run away with one of his thugs with the money.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. I hadn't made quite that much of a connection until you said that there are that sort of mocking undertone is certainly present to me as well.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. Do we want to talk any more about Massimo Dallamano, cinematography of the film?
I think that you kind of said it already. It definitely has just a different color palette, but I think that he works really well with Leone building these worlds and the tight shots, the extreme close-ups that are kind of just such a key to Leone, along with kind of the really wide shots, I think balance each other out really well. And I think going along with that, I think the production design, I think, is a huge element of these films. And I think just as much as Massimo does with the cinematography, I think that the production design really it really shines through in all of these films. It's a huge element. The towns they create, the look of the world. I mean, it's a very full world. There's a lot of stuff in it, and I really enjoy just how well designed all of that is. Carlo Simi is the production designer on these films, and he does a great job working with Leone and just kind of creating these fantastic Western worlds in Spain that, they don't necessarily strike me as anything out of the ordinary that you'd see in the Old West. I think that it feels very Old Western, and I love that. And it's also fun to look at, I don't know if you caught it, but the town at the beginning, Tucumcari, where I can't remember which person is in Tucumcari now. I believe that it's Mortimer, where he gets his bounty.
Yeah.
That's the same set as Fistful of Dollars. It's just kind of redone a little bit.
That's funny. I didn't make that connection. What I did notice though is after that, I mean, the sets seem far more expansive, much less constrained than the last one. I mean, it really feels like we're in bigger towns.
With a bigger budget to make the film. So It really is.
Isn't it interesting in this one that, we've certainly talked about the 60s and the sort of changing expectations and mores around film and what you show on the film. We've talked about the just general violence. But here is one film where we show on screen, we show someone killing another person in the same shot, right? We show someone shooting a horse. And we show drug use and a rape, like all in one movie.
Right.
And it's interesting. We talk about sort of the desensitized, as we get desensitized to violence. But this is one of those films that is notable for pushing that boundary, and taking advantage of more sort of aggressively an aggressively liberal approach to vice and violence. I think coming out of Europe, not battling sort of the Hollywood American standards. And to me, it works to great effect.
There's a lot to that tone that they create in the films. And, I mean, it's funny because they speak to the fact that they weren't even aware what marijuana really did to a person, like when they would smoke marijuana. And so they wrote it into the script because they're like, sure, yeah, maybe he smokes marijuana and this is what would happen to him. And so it's very funny, kind of like they're kind of the drug-induced haze that he goes into. They really had no idea. They were just kind of, this is what we think happens when you smoke marijuana. But it seems right for the character. And in context now, it actually just adds to kind of that damaged psychology of him. But they didn't realize that they were going to be creating the film that has like the first major character in a big budget movie that smokes pot. I mean, there was the kind of the, Reefer Madness and kind of those lower budget sorts of underground films out there, but this was really kind of a big film that actually had that. Yeah. And along with the violence, I think that they just put this stuff in there because that's how they felt that this world would be. And I do think there was kind of European way of thinking that went into that when it came to the U.S. Because it opened in '65 in Italy and in Europe, and then it didn't open until a few months after 1967. But it definitely kind of opened the doors for people to say, hey, well, let's play with those levels of violence, and we don't have to be as restrained as we were back in the 40s and the 50s. We can do something more with these films and really kind of be darker and a little, change it up a little bit. So it's an interesting element to have kind of come over that kind of helped open the doors and expand stuff.
Absolutely. Wow.
Yeah.
Got a little tongue-tied there. Sorry about that. Absolutely. I think it certainly makes a statement. The other thing I think the other cast member I think we need to talk about is, once again, Joseph Egger, who we spoke about as Piro in Fistful of Dollars. Mm-hmm. He is also in this film, and this is his last film.
Yeah.
He died after doing For a Few Dollars More the following year after initial release in '65.
Yeah,
but he was great in this film. He was the old prophet.
The strange man who refused to move when the train came through. And
you talk about these injections of comedy in this film. That sequence, I think, is one that really stands out for me. It looks like, it's shot on the side. It looks like it's shot on this half-building cutaway, and it's on some sort of a just cheap gimbal. And when they start shaking the thing, I mean, it looks like I'm watching an old episode of like Fraggle Rock. It's like so. It's really. It's sort of amazing and super funny to me. Maybe I'm alone. Am I the only one who laughed at this?
No, he's that quirky character. I do find, strangely enough, this filmmaking style of Leone, who has this kind of this vulgar sense of humor, and who really kind of, reached for dark places with his stories, but also reached for really strange, kind of over-the-top, goofy characters in his films. I found a strange relationship between the films that he makes and the films that my favorite French filmmaker makes. Thinking of...
I know.
I'm blanking on The Professional,
Yeah.
and you've got
I was just
over-the-top...
thinking about Lucy.
over the
Luc
top
Besson.
Gary Oldman, and then you've got Gary Oldman's buffoon, cohorts that he works with.
Exactly.
It's this strange balance. I don't think that Besson's works nearly as well as Leone's do for some strange reason. I just really enjoy Leone's characters much more than I do Besson's, and I don't know why that is, but.
Well, I agree with you there, but I think you're absolutely right, and that's one of those connections. I think that's really interesting. You know, when you watch again, when you look at the film in terms of character archetypes, and you see sort of the cultural kind of gestalt that they map against these different times, that works really, really well.
Yeah. Two last things.
All right.
IMFDB.
Oh, of course. How could I forget it? The Internet Movie Firearms Database.
That's right. We got a few extra weapons going on here. We still have the single action army, the revolver that Eastwood has, the fantastic rattlesnake, and a few other characters use that as well. But then, of course, Mortimer, he's got his single action army buntline special. That's the one he fits with the shoulder stock and uses kind of like a carbine rifle when he's shooting that guy at the beginning. That's a little fantastic little tool.
That is a wonderful little gun.
It is. It really is. And then he's got the Winchester 1892 saddle ring carbine, and he's got the Springfield 1873 trapdoor. Oh, actually, that's one of the ones that one of the prison guards used. And then, let's see, there's also the Lefaucheux model 1854. There's the Remington 1866 Derringer that Mortimer has kind of up his sleeve that he pulls out to kill the Hunchback. Volcanic repeater rifles, the Marlin 1893 Colt Lightning rifle, and a good old 12-gauge double-barrel shotgun.
Good old.
Yep.
Old Faithful.
Good old Faithful. So,
I love it.
Nothing like a few weapons.
That's right. You can grab the link for that in the show notes.
A few guns more.
A few guns more.
And then I just want to throw this out there also. In case you're interested in going and visiting the sets from this film or Fistful of Dollars or even Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, or heck, even Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, you can head over to the desert of Tabernas in Almeria in Spain. And they actually have a mini Hollywood there where a lot of these sets are actually still around. And I believe that the town of, Sweetwater from Once Upon a Time in the West is out there. And I think that El Paso, the town here where they do the bank robbery set, is still out there too. So head on out to Almeria if you want to walk where Leone and his cowboy stars all wandered.
Why weren't they shooting in Mexico?
It's a money thing, I think. I mean, Spain is awfully close to Italy. And
well, I guess that's a good point.
Italian production, they didn't have big budgets. And so they stayed close to home.
Well,
but speaking of budgets...
Yeah, let's talk about the budget.
Yeah, this one was 3 times the size of the last one. It was $600,000. So he had a much bigger budget, and obviously that gave him a chance to make this more expansive, like we've already said. And I think it looks great. This film did really well for itself for the $600,000 budget that it had, which in today's dollars is just over $4 million. This actually became the most successful Italian movie ever made up until 1971, when that streak was broken. But a good 6 years, it was the most successful Italian movie out there. Of course, like last week, I couldn't find any numbers on anything relating to the Italian money. So this is all based on what I found for the U.S. dollars. But even here in the U.S., $600,000 budget, it ended up making about $15 million. So it did well for itself. Adjusted, it ended up making per finished minute just here in the U.S. About $750,000.
Let's head over to Flickchart, shall we?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. You go to flickchart.com and you go to flickchart.com/thenextreel. That's where you'll find our stack rankings of all of our favorite films and the films that aren't our favorites anymore. And you should stack your films and see how yours compare to ours. And let's see if for a few dollars more cracks the top 50.
All right, here we go. For a few dollars more, or The Bourne Supremacy.
Now, we made a mistake last week.
Oh, uh-oh.
Don't you think? I mean, this was the thing.
I don't know.
I'm gonna choose a few dollars more, and I'm not gonna do it just as as like a platform vote. I mean, I I would watch this movie first.
No, I think we voted right. I think for a Fistful of Dollars, I probably would pick the Born Supremacy over that still. For a few dollars more, I probably would pick that over the Born Supremacy.
All right. Well, then we're in violent agreement.
We are. Violently. All right. A couple international films here. For a few dollars more, or Das Boot?
I think a few dollars more.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah.
For a few dollars more, or The World's End?
Ooh. Well, I'm going to go The World's End.
Yeah, me too. How about for a few dollars more, or Shaun of the Dead?
Well,
I think I'm going Shaun.
Yeah.
All right, for a few dollars more, or Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
I think you're going to go Eternal Sunshine.
I think I am.
I'm on the fence. I'm really genuinely on the fence.
I would go Eternal Sunshine because that script is a genius piece of writing. I think that the whole notion of erasing somebody, in perpetuity, really, I think is a very brilliant concept.
Okay. I'll do that too.
All right. Oh, and look at that. Number 37. That didn't work.
Why?
Well, it didn't bump it up to above Eternal Sunshine. Or Eternal Sunshine we picked. Never mind.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
That was right.
That's right.
That's right.
And look at that. Number
look
37.
At that, number 37. Well done. I feel like this is testing my brain more each week.
Crack the top 50.
So next week, we're wrapping it up with The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah.
And that will be our, I think, well, it's not our 150th film yet, is it?
It'll be 147th.
147th. All right.
We're getting there.
I was getting all excited. I thought it's our 150th show.
Right. Okay.
Right,
okay. Because we got
those stupid Oscar shows that we used to do. And
yeah.
So, all right.
Yeah.
Well, it is what it is.
Yes.
All right. We're close. Hey, any other notes for the people before we go to bed?
I ain't going to bed. I got some people to hunt down.
So this is by a happy camper. Other than Clint Eastwood, Lee Van Cleef was a man who could play a cowboy without thinking about it. The two together, for a few dollars more, Eastwood is Monco, Van Cleef is Colonel Mortimer, two bounty hunters chasing El Indio. Bloodshed is bound to happen. FFDM, for a few dollars more, for those who don't know, is a perfect example of Sergio Leone's spaghetti western. I totally agree with that, and I actually like the way he puts it. Lee Van Cleef, he's a man who could play a cowboy without thinking about it. In fact, if he's not careful, he will just start playing a cowboy, at Starbucks. If there is a Starbucks where he is, he's
and
dead
in heaven.
now, but he's dead now.
Yeah.
But, he just sometimes breaks into cowboy, and he's not thinking of it. It's very dangerous.
Wow.
Draws on a cashier, and it's not safe having him around. What's yours?
Mine is a 4-star classic Western by Alan Clayton, who says, "To know and appreciate Westerns, everyone must watch this movie. Also, the musical score from this movie is famous and has been heard inside many elevators and grocery stores."
What?
I don't think I've heard the theme song from
For a few dollars
more in the elevator
in a
before.
grocery store? A grocery store?
Walking down the aisles, hearing all the whip cracks and whistling.
Yeah.
And, my goodness.
Fight. We can fight. We can fight.
Andy, it is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
You are telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you. and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
I love The Next Reel Season 4. Do you know why?
I don't. Why?
Because we got to talk about my favorite movie, Terry Gilliam's Brazil.
That's not even an adaptation.
No, but it was such a great part of our great Terry Gilliam series, and a few others in that series were adaptations, like The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, adapted from Raspi's stories, and La Jetée, which inspired 12 Monkeys.
Oh, right. And for our Man with No Name trilogy, we saw how Sergio Leone's A Fistful of Dollars was basically stolen from Kurosawa's Yojimbo.
We added Labor Day to our Jason Reitman series, adapted from Joyce Maynard's novel.
Oof, there's one we'll always regret.
Our big Stephen King series covered adaptations like The Shining, Cujo, Christine, and Stand By Me, great horror and coming-of-age tales.
Another Coen Brothers adaptation, too. We got to talk about how they turned Homer's The Odyssey into Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou?
For our holiday series, we did The Bishop's Wife and The Poseidon Adventure.
And who could forget seeing Alec Guinness in the adaptation of Kind Hearts and Coronets during our series dedicated to him?
We really need to do more of his films.
Truly.
We had our first film noir series with classics like Double Indemnity, Detour, and Out of the Past.
And our black and white cinematography of James Wong Howe series with The Thin Man, Sweet Smell of Success, Seconds, and King's Row. So many adaptations.
Oh, you're not kidding. Dive deeper into these originals and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book you buy helps support our show.
Get the full list at thenextreel.com/originals and start reading today.